Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to dive right into the origins of, well, one of history's absolute most enduring mysteries, a place where history, legend, and straight-up fear all kind of collide. Now look, we aren't here to prove any wild legends today, but we're definitely not here to just brush them off either. Instead, we're going to figure out exactly how a totally ordinary patch of ocean turned into one of the most famous mysteries of our time.
You know, the Atlantic Ocean really is stunning. I mean, if you see pictures of it from space, it's just this glowing, mesmerizing blanket of blue. And think about it, literally every single day, huge luxury cruise ships are gliding right across it. Commercial planes are flying over it every hour. Millions of us travel through these waters completely safely without even batting an eye, right up until we don't. Because for over a century now, there's been this one specific spot churning out some truly chilling stories. We're talking massive ships vanishing without a single distress call, planes just dropping off the radar, and rescue missions that, well, they just never came back.
So where exactly are we talking about here? Well, the Bermuda Triangle isn't some officially marked zone on a map. It's actually a completely invisible area, stretching out from the coast of Florida over to Bermuda and then straight down south to Puerto Rico. And honestly, that's what makes it so terrifying, right? There are absolutely no physical warning signs out there. You're not going to find some giant swirling whirlpool or sail under ominously dark clouds. It just looks like water, completely ordinary water. Some people call it nature's deadliest trap. Others say it's just a bunch of terrible coincidences, and some even think the ocean there is hiding something we were just never meant to find.
Chapter 1: A Calm Morning. Let's get into it. To really wrap our heads around how this legend was born, we actually need to jump back in time a bit. Picture this. It's December 5th, 1945, at the Naval Air Station down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. World War II just wrapped up a few months ago. We've got 5 American TBM Avenger torpedo bombers gearing up for what should have been a completely standard run-of-the-mill day. It was just supposed to be a routine navigation exercise. The mechanics did their final checks, the crews were joking around on the tarmac, tanks were fueled up, and the engines roared to life. The mission plan? Super simple. Fly east, drop a few practice bombs, turn north, and get back home before the sun sets. That's the whole shebang. Nobody, and I mean literally nobody, expected this quick flight to turn into America's most baffling aviation mystery.
So, at 2:10 p.m. sharp, Flight 19 takes off into this gorgeous, clear blue sky. The ocean is just shimmering right beneath them in the afternoon sun. Totally picture perfect. But then, just over an hour into the mission, things start going incredibly wrong. By late afternoon, they're running dangerously low on fuel, and by the time evening hits, nothing but radio static. It was just this rapid, terrifying nosedive straight into the unknown.
That major turning point, the one that hit about an hour in, it all started with just one single radio transmission. The instructor, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, his voice comes crackling through the radio with this terrifying realization. He just says, "My compass isn't working." And he sounded calm, but definitely confused, almost like he couldn't believe it himself. He's looking out of his cockpit, and the islands down below, they aren't matching up with his maps at all. The water just looks wrong. Every direction he looks seems completely off. Now, pilots are heavily trained to trust their instruments, right? But what are you supposed to do when the instruments literally stop making sense? And that right there brings us to this really devastating psychological breakdown. It's this fatal chain reaction of logic that just took over the flight. So step 1, the compass fails. Step 2, Taylor spots these unfamiliar islands and gets completely disoriented. And then comes step 3, the decision that basically sealed their fate. He flat out refused to fly west. Ground control was practically begging him over the radio, over and over, to turn west, because going west would shoot them straight back to the Florida coast. But Taylor was so turned around, he was convinced he was somewhere else entirely. He was absolutely terrified that turning west would accidentally send them flying way out into the open, endless ocean. So one mistake instantly compounded into another.
So now you've got this formation of 5 bombers straying further and further away from any land. Those fuel gauges slowly but surely dropping. The sun is starting to sink right below the horizon. You can literally feel the dread and that claustrophobia just rising in the cockpit, even though they're surrounded by this massive, wide-open sky, and it's all captured perfectly by this one chilling radio transmission. We can't tell where we are. So yeah, that initial confusion, it was rapidly turning into sheer panic.
As time ticked on, their transmissions were getting fainter and fainter. In fact, one radio operator later talked about how he could only hear these broken, fragmented sentences fighting through all the heavy static. And one of those fragments was, "The ocean looks different." I mean, just imagine the tension of hearing that from a highly experienced pilot. Everything they knew about the environment they were flying over had just suddenly become completely alien to them.
And then came the absolute desperation of their final message, just, if we don't find land soon, and that was it. Right after that sentence fragment, the radio's just abruptly cut out. We aren't talking about fading static anymore. It was just absolute silence.
14. I want you to just pause for a second and think about what that number actually represents here. 14 highly experienced airmen. Just completely gone. It really forces you to confront the devastating human cost of this calm morning that went so incredibly wrong.
Five massive military aircraft just vanished into thin air. And honestly, this is the part that makes it feel like a physical impossibility to so many people. Not a single confirmed piece of wreckage was ever recovered. No debris field, no oil slick floating on the surface. No final explanation that actually made sense to anyone. It was like the ocean had just opened up and swallowed them whole. Or, well, at least that's exactly how it seemed.
Chapter 2. When the search became another mystery. Literally within hours of that final radio silence, the U.S. Navy mobilized one of the largest search operations in its entire history. Because, let's be real, they weren't about to just let 14 of their men disappear without a trace. They had ships spreading out far and wide across the Atlantic. They had aircraft searching relentlessly, literally scanning every single wave and cloud from sunrise to sunset. But then, the unthinkable happened. Something just deeply chilling. A rescue aircraft vanished too. Almost the second it took off to help find Flight 19, all contact with that rescue plane was just entirely lost. No way, right?
Now, it is super important that we are absolutely precise with the facts here. There were witnesses in the area who reported seeing a massive flash in the distance around the exact same time that rescue plane disappeared. So naturally, this led investigators to heavily suspect some sort of mid-air explosion. However, and this is a big however, it's absolutely crucial to note that zero conclusive evidence of an explosion and zero wreckage of that rescue plane was ever found. But you have to imagine being the public reading the morning papers, right? To them, it just seemed like this cursed stretch of ocean had hungrily claimed yet another victim.
So suddenly, newspapers all over the country are aggressively asking the exact same question. What on earth is going on in this part of the Atlantic? And honestly, this is exactly how the legend of the Bermuda Triangle was cemented. It wasn't because someone actually found definitive proof of the supernatural. I mean, nobody ever proved it was aliens or sea monsters, right? It was simply because the sheer volume of unanswered questions completely outweighed everything else. When you have absolutely no wreckage, no distress calls, and back-to-back vanishings like that, well, the human mind struggles to process it. The mystery had officially begun, and those questions, they'd end up echoing through the decades.
Which brings us to one final, lingering question to wrap this all up. Are there truly forces out there in the Bermuda Triangle that we just don't understand yet? Or is the real mystery here just humanity's absolute inability to accept an unanswered question? You know, when the ocean refuses to give back its dead and leaves us with absolutely no evidence, our minds kind of rush in to fill that void with legends. It's human nature. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning things, keep learning, and I'll catch you on our next deep dive.